Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the CineMajors podcast. Today is August 5th. It'll be going up on August 6th. My name is James.
My name is Matthew.
And today we have a special guest with us today. Jason Altschul. He is my dad.
How's it
going? He is Weird Al's number one fan, and that Weird Al Yankovic's number one fan. And today we're going to be talking about Weird Al's film, UHF.
I'm here then.
Yeah. So without further ado, let's start with some news stories.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of news, and unfortunately it's rather, at least for a good, I'd say 4 out of the 5, I have pretty negative opinions about them. But I guess let's start off. We thought we were going to be done talking about Tenet and Mulan, but once again, here we are. And our first news is that Tenet, Christopher Nolan's newest film, is going to get a theatrical release. However, it will release worldwide August 26th in various different countries such as Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Korea, and the UK. However, it will not be released in America until the following week, September 3rd, and as a limited release because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So by limited release, did they specify what that meant at all?
No, they never specified what that meant, but my guess is that it'll only open in theaters where theaters are open. So I think by then they're hoping that in at least major cities, hopefully AMC will come back, or like smaller independent theaters will be open. Mm-hmm. So and then they are gonna do a wide release, I think, within the next few weeks, the weeks following that, which hopefully by then theaters will be open. But yeah, I'm glad it's getting a release, but it's a shame that we have to wait longer than the rest of the world.
Right.
I guess it's different, right? It's usually the other way around.
Yeah. And well, considering it's also an American production as well.
That is true.
Right. I think that's just unprecedented. You know, I guess it's kind of a lot of like stuff from Japan like has to wait to US fans have to wait to get it, you know.
Like
so I guess it's somewhere,
months.
Yeah. Right, it's just
yeah.
It's definitely interesting though.
The only thing with that is that, like, when Japan has to wait for movies, it's most of the time it's for movies that are made in a different country, like America.
Oh no, I'm saying like the US would have to wait for something that is being like dubbed or something.
Oh, like a dub. Oh,
yeah.
I see what you mean.
But besides that, I can't. I mean, I don't know if this has ever happened before.
Yeah, I can't think of. Maybe if a movie like did, like a test screening, or maybe a very limited release in a foreign country, but never like a wide release before coming to America for what is a United States and United Kingdom production.
Right. Crazy.
So.
But on the other hand, should we move into our next story?
Yeah, this just at the time of recording this piece of news came to us yesterday. So a few weeks ago, alongside Tenet, Mulan was pulled from Disney's release schedule, but Disney just announced yesterday that it is going to skip a theatrical release and arrive on Disney Plus September 4th.
That's awesome.
But here's the kicker. Yeah, it sounds great, but here's the kicker. It's a $30 video on demand rental.
For the live version of Mulan?
Yeah, I guess Disney's like, oh, because it's a new movie, we could charge a a premium price and people will pay for it.
That's crazy. People would never.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't think people would pay $30 to see a live action version of Mulan. Maybe of
I
like Lion King or something, but not Mulan.
I don't even think $30 is worth it for anything, because it's a like at that point you might as well just wait for the Blu-ray to come out, because Blu-rays are usually what, $25,
Not if you
and you
want
could
to
have
know
it
what
for like
happens, though. Like be the first one to know.
yeah, I
I'd pay an
guess,
extra $5,
but
like $35, if they threw the dragon in.
but I just when I heard this news I couldn't believe it, because it's like what most people say with these VOD rentals, because on average video on demand rentals are around $20 for newer movies, like with for example Scoob, Trolls World Tour, The King of Staten Island. Those were all $20 rentals, and what these studios are saying is like, oh, it's about as much for a an evening showing at if it was in a movie theater, but $30 is just way too much, especially if you're not going to see it in a theater. You're probably going to watch it on your television.
Well, it's less if you're if
It's
you're
Or
a bigger
phone.
family or a bigger group. It is less. I'm sure that's the logic, right? So like if I get it
Mm-hmm.
from
True.
if my family of four goes to the movie theater and I'm actually paying, then it would cost me about $50. But for $30, I could see it and maybe have some friends over too. I guess it's
That's
interesting
true.
how
Yeah,
they're experimenting
that's
with
what
it.
some.
I think $30 is, I mean, they're Disney, so I'm.
Yeah, they could do whatever, and but the thing that also annoys me about this too is that Mulan was obviously meant for a theatrical release. It cost like $200 million to make, and
Mm-hmm.
like people want to see this, including myself. I want to see it like in a movie theater, preferably, just because that's where it was meant to be. And even if it was just going on Disney Plus without the hefty price tag, I still would have been annoyed, because just like, oh, I really wish I would see this in the theater. And that's why I'm hoping that whenever this pandemic ends, that Disney will re-release it in movie theaters, and because I'd rather just wait for that and not like watch it on like my phone or my
They
laptop.
probably will
Mm-hmm.
if it's done well, if it does well. But it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
interesting because it's actually the people get a little annoyed actually times two, because first you get annoyed because it's an animated film brought to live action, which seems to be doing well for the company, but from an artistic standpoint, a lot of people think it's annoying. And then now you can't even see it in the theater; you have to see it at home and pay a lot of money for it.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how it does,
Mm-hmm.
because they promote it really. They'll promote it extremely well, I'm sure. And people are at home; they don't have a lot to do.
Yeah. I think it'll still do well, but at the same time, it's probably attributed to the to how expensive it is. But I can't see people renting this. Personally, I'm not going to, just because it's way too much, and since by the time this comes out, I'll be back at college, and I'll be. I mean, I guess I can invite people over, but at the same time, it's like it's a lot of money for like a 2-day rental.
True.
Mm-hmm.
But
I
yeah,
guess we could split the
If you're gonna
cost.
watch it by yourself, that's a pretty big investment. You're right.
yeah, because like an IMAX ticket in the evening doesn't even like cost you $30. I don't think,
True, but
if you get concessions
I
and
don't think
stuff.
this is designed. I
But
don't think the model is for kid someone to watch it alone. I think they're banking on families to do it. I think that's what worked with Trolls. World Tour.
yeah,
Right.
but it's kind of ironic that it's like, oh, it's meant for families, but the movie's rated PG-13,
Yeah, but it's people don't
which
realize that. I you're absolutely right, but people look past that. I think.
yeah,
Fair. It's Mulan, a Disney classic.
yeah,
Yeah, we'll have to see though.
yeah. I hope it's good. That's all I really hope, because I think Mulan is a good fit for a live action remake. And they, from what I've heard and like I've seen the trailer, and I've read like interviews, they changed a lot from it to make it stand on its own. So that's why I'm way more open to it than say Lion King, where they didn't change anything. And
Right.
because it feels like Disney's take on like a classic, you know, samurai is not the right term because it's Chinese, but it kind of seems like one of those epic, like East Asian films from like China or Japan,
Yeah.
and even Korea to some extent.
It just seems like a completely, different take on it.
Yeah.
Or, different tone. Yeah. It's crazy, though, that we were supposed to see it back in March, right?
Yeah, I think like March 20... No, not... Yeah,
March 27th.
End of March it was
March
originally
27th.
supposed to come out 27th. And then it got
27th.
pushed back to July 24th, which would have been around when AMC was going to reopen. But it didn't.
Yeah. Dang.
And actually that date, July 24th, is a perfect segue into our next news topic. And this one when I heard this news, I got really, really sad, like genuinely. So on July 24th, we mentioned this, that Kissing Booth 2 debuted on Netflix. And then a few days after, Netflix announced that Kissing Booth 3 is going to be released in 2021, and they already filmed it. So the movie's basically done. And they're going to release the third one next year.
Dang.
Where do I even start with this?
Yeah. So The
I can't
Kissing
believe-
Booth is your least favorite movie of all time, right?
It's not my least favorite movie. It's one of my least favorite movies, but it's one that, at least within the past few years, it's like one of my most hated movies. And I wasn't on board with the second one. I haven't seen it, and I don't want to see it. And I remember
Did it
thinking...
come out yet?
It did. It came out on July 24th, and it
Oh.
was number one. It's been number one on Netflix for a few weeks, I think, which is really sad. But I remember having conversations with you like, if people watch this, then Netflix is going to look at the numbers and be like, oh, people want a third one. We got to make another one as soon as we can
and they already
capitalize
did
on this.
it.
But they already did it. They pulled a Lord of the Rings, and they filmed the two movies back to back, it seems like.
Well, I guess they really knew that people were gonna like it or something.
Yeah, no, Netflix was just like,
How did
we know
the-
this is gonna be a hit.
How did the second one do? Like, besides the ratings, like, critically?
It didn't do well critically, but critics have, from reviews I've read, they've said it's better than the first one, but it's still not good.
Yeah.
Which is what I figured. I figured, because I think the first one was at a 16%. It's like, okay, there's a very, very small chance that this will be a lower score than 16, but anything's possible. But then it has like 27 right now.
I see.
And it's like, oh yeah, it's not good, but it's better than the first one. It's like, that's not good.
Low bar, I guess. I haven't seen
Yeah.
it. I probably will not watch it.
Yeah. Never. Yeah. I don't even know, like, I haven't even seen the second one, and even me, I'm just like, what can you do with this basic concept, and that you have to stretch it out into 2 films, and now
Right.
they're gonna stretch it out to 3. It's like, did this really need to be a trilogy? Like,
The Kissing Booth trilogy.
yeah, like, we don't even have a Tron trilogy, and yet we have a Kissing Booth trilogy. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
This is what Hollywood has become,
Become.
making stuff like this?
My disappointment is immeasurable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways. Should we move on to AMC and Universal?
Yeah, let's move on to that. So this is another this one's, I'm not necessarily angry about this, but it is kind of a sad sign in what in terms of what could happen to cinemas. So after AMC did that, AMC originally was going to boycott Universal releases because of the VOD release of Trolls World Tour.
Mm-hmm.
So they have now forged a deal in which Universal releases will be allowed to debut on premium VOD within 3 weeks of the theatrical debuts. So basically, a Universal movie will be in the theaters, and then after 3 weeks, it'll just go straight to digital.
Yeah. That is... So this kind of applies to not only animated movies, but like isn't the next Jurassic World supposed to come out next summer?
Yeah, I think in supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
Then, and also I know Fast and Furious 9 is supposed to come out around that time.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, they are charging the premium VOD price like with Mulan, so it's going to be a $30 rental, which is a lot.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that people are going to be like, oh, what's the point of going to the theater if I could just wait 3 weeks and watch it at home? And we had conversations like this on previous episodes where, as a result of the pandemic, there's this shift where studios are just releasing their movies onto digital. And people are paying it because obviously, like, some people are just like, oh, there's no point in driving out to the theater and paying the expensive ticket when I could just wait until I can watch it at home. But now studios are just shifting towards that, and
So it's definitely going to shift. It's
kinda
interesting,
sad.
right? Just the pandemic and the change that comes from it. But at the end of the day, no matter what deals they get made, or what people are willing to pay or not, see it with people as a group, or whatever, ultimately what matters is that there's good content. So as long as they make good content, good movies, then people will go see them the way that they're supposed to be seen. Ultimately, it's going to take a while for things to shift back, but the key to it is to be making good movies, not necessarily just movies people want to see, but ones that engage people. So you guys should go make them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
Well. Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see how it works with the blockbusters, especially. Because, I mean, would you really consider, like, I guess, like, Trolls World Tour would have been probably an animated, as close as you can get to a blockbuster, right?
I don't know what the projections were
It
for
would
the
have.
Trolls movie, but it's all skewed because everybody was locked up in their house, not under the impression they didn't know what to do with themselves. So here was a solution that was presented to them. It didn't matter what the movie was in that case. So,
Right.
but that's going to change real soon because people are going to be able to not be locked up in their house. They're going to be able to go off and do other things.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see how, like, the next Fast and Furious compares to the last one.
Yeah, I mean, what they're going to find out is, were people going to see Fast and Furious movies because they really liked it, or were they going to Fast and Furious movies because they wanted to go out with their friends for the night to see a big movie, or want to go on a date night or something like that? That's all going to change. But if it's a good movie, if it's a movie people are interested in seeing and want to really see, it's kind of like binging a Netflix series. Like, you got to see the next one or whatever. I mean, if they can create that, that's what's going to drive people to either anything, whether it's a theater, a concert, or seeing something at home on demand, whatever it is. But what has to be created is a reason for people to want to do something, and that's what's going to have to get refigured out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe as a result, we'll get better movies.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as movies don't become terrible, then I guess we're all good. I just think too, like part for me
Yeah.
at least, part of the movie part of why I like movies so much is the community aspect of a theater, like going to it and have like with people you're going to excited to see a movie, and also just like that sort of community and conversation, and to me that only adds on to it. And as long as the movies are still great, like yeah, that I'm all for that. But it's just like it'll be an aspect of it that's missing, at least for me.
Yeah, I agree with that because I mean, like Avengers Endgame, for example, or even like the Fast and Furious movies. It's just cool to go and see a movie that everyone's going to see, you know, and then
Yeah.
like sometimes like people cheer and stuff during the movie. You just can't get that like same energy when
You
you're
really
just watching it.
You really can.
in
Or
your
also,
basement.
like, one example for me is when I saw, at one of the times I saw Parasite, I remember everyone was, like, walking out of the theater and we were all just, like, talking, just, like, wasn't that amazing? Like, do you remember when that happened? Or, like, oh my gosh, I loved when that, when this happened. It was just, like, even just, like, interacting with people that you may have never even met before, but you still have that similar interest.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's what's so fun about going to movie theaters. And
Well,
I
people
don't think
want to
movie
go.
theaters are.
People will want to go.
Yeah, I don't think movie theaters are gonna like die out. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But if a major studio like Universal is making this deal, like it just, I wouldn't say it scares me, but just I wonder what other studios will do. Like, will they follow what Universal does, or
Probably, but there's another tier to all of it, and so what I think George Lucas and Steven Spielberg had said a few years back was that they predicted that in the future, and they didn't say when in the future, going to the movie theater would end up becoming something like going to a rock concert or something like that. It would become an event or an occasion. So if
yeah,
you were to, I think why they were saying that was because of all of these like stadium seating, reserving your seats. That shift from having a traditional movie theater to the ones that we have now. But um, I do, I never believed him at the time, but now I do see it. So if you knew that Mulan live action was going on, well, I guess that's a bad example. Fast and Furious 9 was going to be on demand in 3 weeks for $30, or you could pay $100 and go see it, in a big movie theater. That's what I think is going to happen next. I don't think it's $100, but it might be front row or best seats are $100 and front row seats are $20. I don't know, but that's definitely what they saw, and they're usually right about everything.
Yeah. I think I remember you telling me that
Yep,
it's
actually
really
I've known
a
him
interesting.
few
for a
years
while.
ago.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you kind of do see that with certain movies that have been released. Um, but with that said, should we move into the next story?
Yeah, so Lionsgate and Buzzfeed are forming a partnership to make high concept movies for young adults and quote, make socially relevant high concept feature films for Gen Z and millennial audiences.
Very interesting.
I hope this doesn't mean uh it'll turn to a new Netflix type movies, because if there's one problem I have with Netflix, I mean I love Netflix. They have a lot of good content, but they also have a lot of bad content made for like young adults and teenagers that deserve much better. And whenever, to me, BuzzFeed in general is just kind of a meme. Like, I don't really take them that seriously, and the fact that they're gonna
Right.
make movies now or in this partnership is just really questionable.
Well, I think it's interesting. Have they announced any of the films that they are doing yet, or any of the people they're
They
working with?
they have not, but they said that their first co-production will happen in 2021. But like nothing else has been announced aside from that.
Hmm. When will they? When will it be released?
Yeah, I don't really know what else to say, but I just thought it was interesting.
Hmm.
Hello.
Hey, how's it
Hello?
going?
It's good.
Yeah.
I thought it dropped out for a second, but
I think you did.
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll
This
just
is,
go to your next topic, and we'll just go from there.
yeah. So our last and final topic, or I guess final topic. I don't know why I said last and final. So a few weeks ago,
Final story.
what was that?
Final story.
Yeah, final story. We mentioned this a few weeks ago that Walmart is going to be opening some drive-in theaters in 160 of their parking lots, and they just announced today where those locations will be and what the dates are. So from August 14th through October 21st, they're going to have 320 showings at 160 of their parking lots. So you have to make a reservation, and the movies will start at 7:30 at wherever location it is. And they have a lot. Like there's quite a obviously there's 160 Walmart stores, and they're all like in quite a few states, including Illinois as well. And they're going to show movies according to this article. Movies they're going to show include E.T., Wizard of Oz, Black Panther, Cars, Iron Giant, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So, bunch of mainstream movies for families.
Very cool. Is it going to be the one by us?
No, so at least for Illinois, it will be more in the southwestern part of Chicagoland.
Makes sense.
I know one of them is gonna be in like Bloomington, for example, and New Lenox. So none near us. Nice. Actually.
Yeah, but that makes sense. Kind of like where there's not really a lot of light pollution, and
yeah,
I'm sure the parking lots are pretty big there.
I'm sure they purposely chose like really big parking lots and also ones that aren't near like busy roads and stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's cool though. Do they have any like pictures or concept art or anything?
The only concept art was the one that was released in July, which was just it was like a computer rendering of it. So
cool. It's exciting.
It is, and I'm curious. I'm sure it will be successful. Like, I don't have any doubts about it, but I'm just curious to see how practical it'll be. Since it's a Walmart, and the store is still Walmarts don't close at 7:30, and they'll still be open at the time. And I wonder if they're doing reservations, how limited is it? Like how many? What's the maximum amount of cars that could be used for this?
Yeah. It'll I'm excited to see like a YouTube video of it because I don't think I'll be able to go.
Nope.
But
No.
No,
I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
nah. I mean, we'll see. When did you say that they're starting?
August 14th. So in about a week, they'll be starting. It's going on a lot longer than I was expecting too. I thought it would be like a month, maybe, but it's like over 2 months.
Yeah,
it's pretty impressive.
Dude. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
I guess we'll keep following that as it goes on.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, should we get into the movie?
UHF. Let's
Yeah.
talk about UHF. This was
Cool. So UHF was released in 1989. It follows the story of, I guess, Weird Al's character is George Newman, and he acquires he becomes like the manager of a TV station, a local TV station, UHF channel 62, and it basically the basic plot is that he's just basically trying to revamp and run the TV station, and along the way there's a lot of kind of commercials and skit like segments that we really get to see Weird Al Yankovic's like talent for parody shine.
Yeah, it was interesting. I gotta say, but if I'm being totally honest, I didn't really enjoy it. I kind of thought it was like annoying at points, and it's not that I like Weird Al Yankovic as an artist. Like, I like his songs and I like his style of comedy, but there's a reason why I don't think he ever, as far as I'm aware, he never did another like movie, so to say, where he like wrote it and was like the main star, right?
No, this is his sort of debut movie, and at the time, he was trending, in the world. Not that he isn't now, but he was sort of at a point where he was very, very famous, and he does a lot of different types of art, but it was time for there to be a Weird Al movie, and so he made it, and he has not done another movie like that, like where he produced and starred in it.
Yeah, and a part of me kind of sees why, because as much as I love Weird Al's style of humor, I can only watch it for so long. Like, it's mostly meant, he works for like a 10-minute sketch or a 5-minute parody song, but for an hour and a half movie, it's just kind of, it gets really repetitive and kind of sadly irritating at points. And I feel really bad for saying that, because I know you, Mr. Altschul, love this movie, right?
Well, I love it, and I think it's basically like the same thing as watching Gold, but at the same time, I think that your viewpoint is not uncommon. I think there's a lot of people that felt that way. It did not do well at the box office, and
that's what I've heard. Yeah,
it spun Weird Al into a bit of a hole at the time. I mean, I think it was a lot of work went into it, and it didn't see the results that he had hoped. However, that being said, what did happen is and I'm biased because I love anything he touches, but what did happen is it became really what's considered to be a cult classic. So there's a very strong following. It's become extremely successful, so much that they're able to take this movie that performed very poorly at the box office and eventually bring it out on DVD and then eventually on Blu-ray, just because he has enough fans or people that do get it. Now you're looking at it like a film critic, which is what you do, but if you take it for what it's worth, is just, if you want to call it a series of different sketches or whatever, there's some really classic film moments in this movie. There's a lot of important things that do happen in the movie. I think if you ask a lot of people, did they like UHF? A lot of people often will refer to the various different there's just a lot of quotes that are famous that come from it. Um, and I think if you look at it as a whole, like as a how does it hold up as a movie, I can understand what you're saying, Matthew, but at the same time, if you look at it for just sort of the funny parts, if you will, it's for me, I say beyond impressive, but it's very clever. There's not very many other movies like that. Weird Al is inspired
Yeah,
by slapstick humor like Naked Gun or Airplane, that those types of movies. I guess Naked Gun wasn't out when this came out, but or maybe Naked Gun 1 was, but either way, yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
yeah, I definitely agree that, like, at least for me when I was watching this, because this was my first time watching it, and I'd heard of it before. I didn't really know much about it, so I didn't know what really to expect. And then when I realized, like, okay, it just seems like a bunch of sketches, I tried to view it as that and not so much as a movie with, like, beginning, middle, and end, but which it kind of does have that too built in. But even on its own as sketches, I didn't find them very funny per se. And maybe just because I'm much younger, I didn't grow up in the 80s, and even though I know Weird Al stuff, I'm not like a fanatic for
Yeah,
his work. And but even like as like sketches, it's like I just kind of find them, they're either not very funny or they're just kind of obnoxious at points. And it's not that I'm against like sketch comedies where it's just a bunch of sketches, like for example the Eric Andre show. That's just the whole purpose of that show is just, it's just random sketches tied together, and they make no sense. It's just total comedy, and I find that really funny because first of all it's less structured, but it's also a lot shorter too. It's only like a 10-minute program on television. Whereas with this, like,
yeah. I
kind of like
mean,
what I
in the
said,
context,
I
right?
can
That's
only
what you're
watch that for
talking
so
about. In
long.
context,
Yeah.
you're watching a half hour show or 20-minute show or whatever, and it's meant to just be a series of different jokes after jokes after jokes without anything gluing it together. And whereas this is a full movie, and it's sort of using the premise as an excuse for Weird Al to put together a lot of these funny ideas that he has. And he is known as being doing a lot of parodies. So when this came out, it was sort of saying, all right, this is the Weird Al version of movie parodies. You know him with the music parodies, but then this is the movie parody. So he parodies Indiana Jones and Rambo, Gandhi. I mean,
Rambo.
just a number of different things that I think at the time was understood and accepted. Do you care about George Newman and his whether he gets to save the station or not? Yeah, I mean, you care way more about if Marty McFly can get back to the future or not. I mean, that they're two different totally levels, obviously, but on purpose. So I I would say that his humor is not for everybody for sure. It's just generally liked by or I like to think there's something in there for everybody, but maybe not. I guess it just depends on sort of where you're at when you're going to watch it. Like if you're going in it to watch a story, to get a story told to you, you're probably going to be disappointed. And that's not what you're saying. You're saying you're just annoyed and irritated by a lot of the different things or you don't find them as funny. But um, I'm sure there's some parts of it you liked, right? There had to be something you thought was funny.
Oh yeah, there. I did laugh like at. I mean, and when I say like I found it annoying and irritating, it's not like I didn't laugh at all. Like there were
I
actually
know.
quite a few moments where I genuinely laughed. Like I really like the I from what I've told is an iconic moment where Michael Richards' character, he hosts the children's show where it's like a parody
Yeah,
of Bozo, and like with the fire hose, like, you ready for the fire hose? Yeah, and just like
yeah.
sprays the kid. He goes flying. Like I was like, okay, that was really funny. And also I did like all the parodies of like the television shows, like where it's like he's like flipping through it's almost like you're flipping through channels and you just see all these commercials like, oh, here's bowling with burgers, or the
Oliver
I
Barker.
forget what else, the Wheel of Fish, and Conan the Librarian. Like that, I thought that was really funny. And also just kind of like the cartoony violence. Like I love when Weird Al's with I forget
Emo Phillips.
the guy's name. Yes,
Emo
yeah,
Phillips, yeah.
with him, Neil Phillips, and like he cuts his thumb off, and then he's like just like spraying. He's like, oh, you gotta find it. It's just like it goes on for way longer than it has to, but it's just like this really cartoony blood spraying out and squirting Weird Al in the
Yeah.
face. It's like, okay, that's really funny, but what? But then once you get past that, just kind of like it tends to repeat itself, and
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was finished.
Well, I mean, I think that when now you're fresh after watching it for the first time, and I, I think again the setting that you watched it in was you're watching it for talking about it on this podcast. But if if you're I guess you're in the mood to want to watch a comedy, you're in the mood to you want to see what Weird Al does about a movie of Weird Al. That's that's what you're gonna get. I don't know if that makes sense, but just kind of like the mood that you're in might
Yeah,
determine
I
what you think of it. And it is, I think, it is a little dated. I mean, it came out in 1989, and it's a lot of the references, you know, they do hold up, but at the same time, I think when you look at Joel Miller drinking from the fire hose, that joke has probably been done in other ways in your own upbringing, right? You've probably seen things like that, but at the time, there
yeah
really wasn't anything like that. So that's why that's so funny. Even, you know, Wheel of Fish, that's pretty unique, and you know, it's not just the fact that there's a wheel. It's a parody of Wheel of Fortune, by the way.
Wheel of
Um,
Fortune. Yeah,
but if you think it's funny or annoying or irritating or whatever, that it's okay, I get it. It's a wheel and there's a fish, and she picked the red snapper. That's kind of funny, I guess. It's a parody, and that's a certain type of humor. But the real part of that scene that's so funny is when it's what's in the box, and it's nothing, absolutely nothing, and
it's
then
nothing.
you're so stupid, and that's the humor. And I think that if you're watching it in the context of just um, I don't want to say, Matthew, you didn't get it, but I'm just saying that if someone isn't really in tune with what they're trying to watch for, and that's probably a flaw in its own right of the movie, but I think stuff like that could get overlooked. Even like
Yeah,
at the end with Cooney, with the guy that does the Wheel of Fish, and the Stanley Spadowski or Michael Richard loses his mop, and they go to rescue him, or Weird Al goes to rescue him, and they open the janitor closet, and the um, Cooney and all the karate guys are there, and they say supplies, instead of surprise. That's the kind of humor that I think gets overlooked. It's like just those things that you have to like key into.
Oh, fair.
yeah.
I think it's like I wonder if I don't imagine that you'd be able to go see a movie like this in the theaters today. I mean, obviously you can't see anything in the theater right now, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't think you would. I wish you could.
like
But this is one of
it's interesting. Like I feel like a lot of the type of content in the movie would, like, we see this kind of stuff quite a bit on the internet.
Oh yeah, like on YouTube and stuff.
right, right.
Yeah, and maybe that's why it's not like quite as special,
I think that's a good
because
point.
we're just
You're used to getting all this stuff thrown at you, and it's funny for a hot second, and then uh, with this, it's like this is a commitment to an hour and a half of watching this story about someone that you may not care a whole lot about, um, mixed in with the various different jokes and skits and all that. But um, your perspectives are interesting because yeah, you are you have all the YouTube stuff crammed down your throat, and you're used to just going to the next thing so quickly. And not YouTube specifically, but the world, if you will. So yeah, I get where you're coming from.
And personally, I did like the movie. I didn't, I guess I didn't really like say yet. I think there definitely were some problems, like technically. The pacing
Yeah.
was a little rough, and I think the ending dragged on a little bit too long. But I mean, I did laugh out loud, like several times throughout the
What
movie.
did you think was so funny?
I mean, it's like,
I mean,
all the I like the Wheel of Fish. I like a lot of the characters' reactions were really funny to me. Like when Stanley Spadowski says that he got the mop when he got his mop when he was 8 years old. That was really funny to me.
oh yeah,
I don't know, just like, I guess when I because obviously I've seen this movie before. Because you're my,
yeah, you have to.
I mean, you're my dad. It's required.
Right.
Like, I guess, like, piecing together the logic of it was a lot more funny to me. When I see it as a kid, like, when I saw it as a kid, I didn't really, like, piece it together quite as well as I did on this viewing. And I think I get that with a lot of Weird Al songs as well. Like, there's, like, more humor when you think about it. Like, in the song, Albuquerque, when he's talking about this guy, and he says, this guy comes up to me who says he hasn't had a bite in 3 days. And I know what he meant, but, like, why did somebody not eat in 3 days,
Right.
Like,
There's layers to it.
funny to me.
Like, you can take it at face value, but if you really read into it, there's much more humor to be found.
Yeah.
You,
So and obviously Weird Al is a talented comic,
yeah, absolutely. When you guys were talking about just differences in generations or whatever and whatnot, I think there's a part in the movie where R.J. Fletcher, the guy who owns the TV station, the competing TV
Channel 8.
station, Channel 8, says to the guy, he's talking about the hat, but he says, and take that ridiculous thing off. And then he takes off his mustache. Do you remember that part?
Oh yeah, that was a really funny moment. That got me.
But what's interesting about that particular thing, that particular moment, is that Rian Johnson, who some people think is a really good director and some people think he isn't, he did Knives Out and he did The Last Jedi, Star Wars Part 8. You guys both know who he is.
Yeah.
But that's a line that Snoke, I don't know how much I have to explain this on this thing, but you know who Snoke is in The Last Jedi, and he says that to Kylo Ren. He says,
take that
ridiculous
ridiculous
thing off to the. He's talking about his face mask. But anyway, that's a homage to UHF. That's because Rian Johnson loves UHF.
Mm.
Wow.
And a lot of people do. I don't know a whole lot of people in the film world that just don't, that they knock it. I mean, I don't think people take it too seriously, but I think most people will quickly say, "Oh yeah, UHF, drink from the fire hose." And the other thing is that when back in the day, and I mean they still do this now, but it's not for every single movie. But most movies when they're being promoted and all that, they would have soundtracks, to go with them. And I know that a lot of movies still do, but that was part of how music was promoted, was through movies and through getting people to buy the soundtrack. So that was sort of a big catch with with this movie coming out is that, well, obviously, if Weird Al makes a movie, everyone's going to buy the soundtrack. So the while the soundtrack is awesome, there's only I think there's like on the soundtrack itself, I think there's three, maybe four, I think four tracks on the soundtrack that has 11 songs on it that are actually in the movie. Otherwise, it was just sort of another Weird Al album. So it was an outlet to put out another to sell more CDs or more, I guess, cassette tapes back then. So my point is that it's more than just a movie. That's what I was saying. So usually there's people that saw it, and then that might be what they remember is some of the music, some of the soundtrack, some of the Gandhi 2 and Spatula City.
Like, yeah, that's stuff that has stuck with me. Like, I think there was, I don't know how many times I've seen this movie before, but there is stuff like the iconic stuff like still stuck with me to this day. And on this viewing, I think I just got to I definitely just kind of refreshed my memory.
Well, that's good. I wish a lot of people could get their memories refreshed. Because what's wrong with a good movie?
Nothing.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Matthew?
Yeah, when I thought about it, like, I guess one issue that I do have with the structure, at least, because what you said, James, was like with the pacing, where it's like I don't necessarily, for me, it's not the pacing that's the problem. It's that it's structured very awkwardly, because the movie starts off, and it starts off like a story. There's the beginning. You were introduced to these characters. He inherits this TV channel or this network, but then once he owns that, it starts like, that's when all like the sketches come in, and then it sort of has no plot, but at the same time it kind of does. It's really hard to describe, but then it's not till like the last third when the story picks up again, where channel 8 wants to buy channel 62, and then they have to raise, what was it, $75,000 so that it doesn't get shut down by them, and then you have your ending. So I feel like the movie like stops, and then picks up again. Like right in the middle is where all the funny stuff happens. I mean, I shouldn't say that, but where most of the parody sketches, I guess, occur. And then the story kind of gets lost, and then it picks up at the very end. So it's a very weird structure. That's kind of what I couldn't really get behind it.
But
I guess
you're right. You're right in that at the ending, the last third of it is where they realize they got to raise the money, and then they go try to get it, and that doesn't happen until more than halfway past the mark of the movie. And the beginning of it is he gets a station, and so then it's like, what's he going to do with the station? And that's what that's just a door for him to do what he does best. But I don't think it's fair, this is me speaking here, to put it on such a critical level. Like, you're right, the pacing is not that good. It's not a movie designed to have phenomenal pacing. I mean, it was made as a way really to make you laugh. So is it perfect from a artistic, cinematic standpoint? No, it's not. I mean, you have to take it for what it's worth, and I think if you take it for what it's worth, it's extremely enjoyable. That's my best I can do with not being biased to how great it really is.
Fair.
I also realized too that, like, considering Weird Al he's on the poster, he's first build, he's not in the movie nearly as much as I was expecting. Because it seems like to me, once he owns the studio and then he hires Stanley as the janitor and then becomes the TV shows, like all your attention goes to him because he like steals most of the show. I
That
feel
is
like
true.
with his with him being on
Literally.
yeah, literally he does. He saves the network from going down under. But then Weird Al's just kind of off to the side because he's not an actor. He's not. I mean,
Yeah, no,
he's the
you're
manager
right.
of the station. Yeah, and he's
Yeah.
just like, okay, this is a Weird Al movie. It starts off with him as like the protagonist, so you think like he's gonna, do all these crazy antics on the like in front of the television, but he's in the back room like doing like trying to get the network afloat. So
Yeah,
it's very odd.
that's
Yeah.
an interesting observation. And I think Michael Richards is hysterical, right? And
Oh, he's
they
fantastic.
were
Yeah,
on to
he's
something,
great.
and this
Yeah.
was just before Seinfeld. So, he's a breakout star. You're right, he steals the show, and it's a Weird Al movie, not a Michael Richards movie, and Weird Al is not in it nearly as prominently uh, as the hero as one might expect. But I think, like, even when you look at that Wheel of Fish scene, um, that's Weird Al. I mean, he's not in it, but it's still his humor.
Right.
That's still him. Conan the Librarian or Gandhi too. I mean, Weird Al's not in that either, but that's
Yeah.
Weird Al, being funny. Um, so I guess you're right. Like, for someone who wants to just see Weird Al be on the screen and be funny, yeah, that may not be as prominent as one might think. But I've never actually thought of it that way before, and I won't anymore. But no, I'm just kidding. Uh, but it is true. I mean, for someone who hasn't seen it, and it's a movie that's over 30
So
years old. Yeah, over 30 years
yeah,
old.
came out in July 1989.
July 21st. That's right. Um, and and I guess your perspective is interesting.
I just read right here that apparently Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert they hated this movie.
So
Like
they definitely hated
they
it.
really hated it.
So the album that comes out after UHF is called Off the Deep End, and one of the parodies in that it's called You Can't Watch This. It's a parody of You Can't Touch This by MC Hammer. It's an old song. This is 1992, and one of the lines is those Siskel and Ebert bums can just go sit on their thumbs, and that's some debate over whether or not that was a response to their review of it or not, because the song is just about different TV shows at the time. So yeah,
Yeah,
I could care less what Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert think. No offense to them.
Gene Siskel gave it
Mhm.
0 stars,
Yeah.
and said quote.
Zero
Yeah, he said, quote,
stars.
never has a comedy tried so hard and failed so often to be funny.
Well,
Yeah, I wouldn't go that
if
harsh, honestly.
That's
one of the
yeah.
one of the big complaints about the UHF not being as successful is it came out in the summer of 1989, and that summer, those are some of the biggest movies that ever have come out are from that summer. So I think that's
Like
Batman.
Batman and
Maybe is that
Indiana
Roger
Jones.
Rabbit? Indiana Jones
Roger Rabbit
3
was the year before.
was okay,
Yeah.
and then
Ghostbusters 2.
and one of the Lethal Weapons. It might have been Lethal Weapon 2. Yeah, it was Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon 2.
So, I mean, those movies were, and I think I was telling James when I saw UHF, which came out, at the end of the summer, midsummer, I guess. They, granted, back then there was no internet, but when I was so excited to go see that movie, and when I saw it, the trailer on UHF was for the Ninja Turtle movie that came out that winter, that fall.
Oh.
And so, I mean, I was in heaven. It was just the Ninja Turtle live action movie, which I didn't even know they were making. And then I get to sit in an hour and a half of Weird Al. It's just awesome.
Weird.
It was just great. It was a very fond memory.
Yeah.
But all those other movies we just named, I must have seen at least 2 or 3 times in the theater.
I'm kind of surprised that even
Yeah.
though the movie was up against these big blockbusters, I'm still surprised it like did so poorly considering because Weird Al was like he was like still super popular like in the 80s and stuff.
Yeah,
So
this was
wouldn't people have like flocked to that? I mean, probably not as much as Indiana Jones, but still, it's like
I
it only
think
made $6 million on
I
a $5 million budget.
honestly, I think that if you did it now, it would make a lot more money because he's got a much bigger fan base. But
Yeah.
back then in 1989, I was a freshman in high school. Or I was going to be a freshman, sorry, a senior in high school. I was going to be a senior in high school, and so I'm like sort of at the top of. I'm very close to the top of that age bracket of people that grew up with Weird Al. So at the time, there's really no adults. I mean, I was 17 to 16 years old, so there's no real. It's almost like a kids movie that your parents wouldn't take you to. So
Oh
the
yeah.
demo was the demographic of the audience was kind of bad, but I think what the super fans of Weird Al's would say is that Weird Al's kind of gone through different stages of his career, and this was the end of, or very close to the end of one of his stages. Eventually, he went on to do Off the Deep End, but then he really he took a break and he came back out where he changed his look and he changed his well, he mainly just changed his look, but he upped his quality, I guess is probably the way to say it. I mean, it's hard to describe, or I'm not very good at describing it, but it's basically just he changed his um, almost his style altogether, and I think he attributes some of it to he had a hard time with UHF not being as successful as he had dreamed of. But like I said earlier, I mean, it just
Hmm.
went on to this cult classic thing where it's just been very, very successful from here on out um, through home rentals and stuff like that. He gets asked all the time if he'll ever do a sequel, and he always says no. People don't need to see a sequel to UHF. He wants to work on other things. He's got a lot of other ideas that he's hinted at a lot of different types of movies and things that he uh, wants to do or whatever. And he always has kind of said he can't talk about it, but he's working with Comedy Central on something, or he's working with Lin Manuel on something, and I don't know. He said a lot of things just kind of come and go all the time. But I think he's got. I think he's gonna do something big soon because he ended his his music contracts are up, so he doesn't make new CDs anymore or new albums, excuse me. Um, and I feel like he's going to do something again soon. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on a tangent, but that's just what I'm hoping for.
That's what this is
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
for. Yeah.
So I
I don't know. I feel
go
like it
ahead,
would be
Jason.
cool. I feel like it would be cool to see another movie like this, like maybe with like if he was like a co-writer or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be awesome if he was involved in anything. I think the latest rumor is that he is working with Lin Manuel Miranda to revise the Hall of Presidents at Disneyland and Disney World or Magic Kingdom in Florida.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I can't think of a better thing to do than that.
Interesting combination.
Well,
I
they're
think
good
that would be
pals.
pretty
They
great.
they they they. Lin Manuel Miranda's very inspired by Weird Al. He's also sort of in that same group as I am, age wise, where he was inspired by Weird Al. He definitely attributes a lot of his success to Weird Al. I'm not making this up. I mean, it's like Lin Manuel spoke at Weird Al's Hall of Fame induction and all that, or Walk of Fame, Hollywood Star of Fame, excuse me. And there's a lot of videos where they're
Yeah.
together a lot. Just genius.
They were together when they found
Yeah.
out they would get their
Yep.
stars, right?
Huh.
At the Curb Your Enthusiasm filming. Well, they were filming Curb Your
During when
Enthusiasm.
Lin Manuel was at was on the set for, or was doing his cameo or whatever, for whatever
Yeah, it
season that was.
was a good
Yeah,
episode.
definitely, definitely. So Matthew, what now you understand why it's so funny and you think it's a great movie. What are other what other movies do you think are really funny?
What other movies I think are really funny?
Yeah,
Uh,
like
um,
what's your kind of favorite comedy? Because there's so many different kinds.
yeah, comedy is such an interesting genre because, well, for two reasons. One, because it's all subjective. Like you can find something to be hilarious, and then you could show that to someone, they'll think it's like not funny at all. But also, there's so many
Case in
different
point,
types of comedy too. There's stuff like, for example, like UHF, where it's very like
I think
sketch
slapstick.
parody
Yeah,
oriented, slapstick. But then there's like dark comedies like, oh man, I don't know, like Stanley Kubrick has a lot of dark comedy in his films, like
sure.
in Clockwork Orange and even in something like Full Metal Jacket or something.
Hmm.
But that's a good question. I guess if I had to choose a favorite comedy for me, it would be Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Well, that's a very funny movie.
Just
That's very
just
iconic,
because it's
but
like it it might like it's not like joke after joke after joke, but it's more just kind of the idea is funny and also just the execution with also him breaking the fourth wall, and there's so many iconic lines too. So for me it's like I always come back to it and just like I always like have such a fun time. And yeah.
I think that's a good example of a movie that's really funny in a lot of different ways. And what's interesting about that movie is it came out in the same era of UHF, and I mean it's a different movie altogether, but the appeal of Ferris Bueller is very broad, right? I mean it's just a lot of
Right.
teenagers and parents can identify with it and so forth. So the humor, while it is really funny, um, it's it also tells a story that I mean I think you care about. I think because it almost doesn't have a plot, but you do care that Ferris
Yeah.
Bueller, uh, everything turns out okay. I mean, I guess
I
they explore a little stuff with Cameron and his what he's going through and dealing with, but ultimately it is plotless.
I still get tense when Ferris Bueller has to run back home in time and
Right.
then like get into bed.
Yeah.
But that's to your point about UHF and the ending having to be like the it picking up at the last third of the movie. That's kind of the same thing. It's Ferris Bueller all of a sudden realizing he's got to get home. I think I haven't seen it
Yeah.
for a long time. I know we're not talking
Yeah.
about Ferris Bueller, um, but like you were just saying, it's different styles of comedies appeal to different people, and I think it's for what you're you're in the mood for, what your perception of what you're seeing is before you see it. Because for Ferris Bueller, you knew before you saw it, it was a John Hughes movie. You knew it was about teenagers. It wasn't that unexpected when you saw it, or most for most people.
And I guess,
Right.
well, you didn't have anything to compare this to, or you didn't, like you said that you didn't have any expectations, right?
For UHF.
Yeah.
Um
Did you know anything about the
not
plot?
not really. All I knew is that it was just from what I've heard is that it's just very weird. Like it's the name
Oh
Weird
yeah,
Al.
fair.
So I didn't really know what to expect. If I'm being totally honest, I had a feeling it was going to be something like this, just knowing Weird Al's style. But it just kind of
Hmm.
it did both like sketch bunch of comedy sketches, kind of like Kentucky Fried Movie, where I would they're not.
I was gonna say,
Whereas Kentucky Fried Movie,
when you,
they're not really connected though. This one at least there is a bit of a connection because it's all on a television station. But then they also have just like a comedy type plot too, so it just like kind of threw both in, which I wasn't expecting, and that's what I was kind
Mhm.
of thrown off.
Yeah, the guys that did Kentucky Fried Movie, I mean, they're definitely a big inspiration to Weird Al. I mean, he's always been very open. I'd say Kentucky Fried Movie and UHF are on the same level. I think it's very fair to compare them from a slapstick, standpoint. I mean, you may think one's more funny than the other, and one has more pacing than the other, but the humor is, though Kentucky Fried is, I think, rated R and a little more intense. Um,
Yeah.
the style of the humor is similar.
I will say I did like UHF more than Kentucky Fried Movie.
Oh, well, Kentucky Fried Movie is a
Yeah.
really good movie, man.
we
But
watched it,
I know.
James and
I
I.
was getting worried when you gave it like a 2 out of 10 that you wouldn't like UHF,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I mean, like UHF, like I understand the appeal, like, and I maybe if I watch it again with a different like mindset, knowing where it's just like, okay, don't don't focus on like plot or anything, just like just have fun, don't take it seriously, and just acknowledge that it's stupid, because yeah, the humor and style is very silly and very just like ridiculous, but like watching that with having like no expectations, like I just wasn't sure what to expect, and probably because of that, that maybe why I didn't really enjoy it as much.
I think that's right, and that's a flaw in the movie, right? I mean, you shouldn't have to,
Yeah,
get into
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So I think you're being honest, and it's, and I think you got a lot of valid points for sure. So I think you giving it an 8 out of 10 is fair. I'm just joking.
So with that said, should we get into the final thoughts of the movie?
Sure. uh I guess I'll go first. It's it's definitely a product of the time, and I see the appeal, but it's just like kind of like what I said earlier. It's just wasn't what I was expecting, and there's still a lot of issues I have. That so for now at least, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10, but that could change if I watch it again.
I hope that you do, because I'd be curious to know what your take on is if the four goes up. But I think your four is honest, and I think it's probably a good reflection of a 30-year-old movie like that, a cult classic that's 30 years old, right? I mean, I think that's fair.
Yeah. I'm not giving it 0 stars like Gene Siskel, so
No, no.
that's all. I won't be that harsh.
Yeah. Well, I had a lot of fun watching this movie, even though I was by myself. I was planning on editing during the movie, but I did not. I gave my full attention to the movie. I think there's pacing problems. I guess it's a little dated in terms of its references and I guess a little bit like with like cultural appropriation, but you know, it's 30 years old. And I think it is a lot of fun. There's a lot of really great moments in it. And I think it is kind of in line with like my sense of humor. So, I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10.
Nice. Do I get to give it a rating, or I'm a guest? So I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, totally.
Oh, I am. So what I would say
Yeah.
is that hearing your perspectives are definitely enlightening, and I think you both have unique outlooks as people that didn't grow up with kids that didn't grow up with this movie, and it's fair, going into it not knowing what to expect. That's kind of where I think what you get. I do hope that I guess Matthew in particular will get a chance to revisit it and sort of let it soak in a little bit, because I think there are some parts of it that are really good and classic. But what I would say is, personally, it would be, I mean, I give it a 10 out of 10, just because it's sincerely a funny movie, and a it's had an impact not just on me, but I think on a lot of people that I know. We watched it night after night. I'm sure, at least after it came out on VHS or on DVD and Blu-ray. I've got a chance to actually watch it with Weird Al one time, which is really cool too. So I'm biased though. But I think as far as things go with you guys, if you end up seeing the live action Mulan movie and end up giving that anything more than a 4, I would never be on your podcast again, nor would I probably let James continue to work or go to college in Iowa. I'm serious. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
really serious, but let's not get too excited about that Mulan movie if you just gave
Yeah.
that before. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. I hope you like the Mulan movie. You guys.
I mean, that's actually one thing I was like thinking of throughout the movie is like I paid to go see Bridge of Spies one time, and like when it came out, and that movie it really was not fun to watch.
Oh, you didn't like it?
It was a good movie, but it just wasn't fun, you know? Like, and I think I would have much rather have seen a movie like this in the theaters with my friends than Bridge of Spies. But I guess it's been a while since I've seen that movie as well. And admittedly, I saw it in middle school. So, anyways.
They're talking about Tom Hanks being Geppetto in the live action Pinocchio.
Really?
I heard.
Happened today. Yeah. Or came out today. I assume you're looking really forward to that.
That would be
too,
pretty
right,
good.
Matthew?
Depends on who's making it, and also like
Disney.
the execution, because Pinocchio is not one I would see working well in live action.
Well, you'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then.
You all will.
So that wraps up this episode of the CineMajors podcast. And I forgot to say this before we start recording, but next week's film, originally we thought we were going to do something else, but I'm going to choose a movie called True Stories, which came out in 1986, and it's by David Byrne. And it's a very good movie, so catch us next time. I'm Matthew.
I'm James.
Jason, thanks for having me on here, guys. It was fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
You. And we'll see you guys next time.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.